guys, how are you guys doing? For those who don't know me, my name is Hope, and I just have a question before we start with the series that we read yesterday. Is what would you choose between a movie or a series? But for me, I like choosing a series. Main reason is because a series is something that just keeps on getting you hooked after and after and after. It just leaves you on a climate that you just want to rise to the top. And the moment when you get a satisfaction storytelling, a satisfaction ending, everything just seems like a wonderful ending, and you just want to go back to it just to get that feeling back again. That's what I like about a series, basically. So yesterday we were reading I worked for an organization that contains God. We had to make a sacrifice this time. So basically we left it at a point where our boy basically left one of his assistants to die, and one of his assistants was left there and he was taken by the gods, and now they told him that he has to go to Antarctica looking for 10,000 missing people, but he came back with a new boss. So we are going to be talking about that, mainly because the reason why the organization actually wants him to go there is because he has been alive for so long that the organization at this point, I feel like they just want to put him in a situation where he can die. So we are on part 2, so let's get right into it. But before we do that, make sure that you grab your coffee. So I got a new boss. Well, God is a crazy way to put it. Forced into an arrangement is probably more accurate. I have a lot of feelings about this situation, and unfortunately most of them are terrible. The rest are alcohol related. So feels like the perfect time to sit down and write everything out before I convince myself none of it actually happened. The short version is that Antarctica went very, very wrong. The slight longer version is that over 10,000 civilians disappeared. 405 containment personnel vanished trying to investigate. And for the reason that still escaped me, management decided I was the right person to send after them. Apparently surviving previous deadly encounters qualifies you for future deadly encounters. Basically, they just want to send you to a death mission. I feel like they'll be like, okay, this boy has been living so long, we need to take him out. Let's give him more deadly mission, so that he can think that he's like superior, but in reality, we just want him dead. I feel like I should not be saying that much, especially with how YouTube is, but like, you know what I mean? Like, that's the only explanation that makes sense. Because I feel like you've proven that you are capable. Why don't they just give you an easy retirement thing? I don't know. So this feels like a part-time. Human resources should really stop using that metric. To explain how any of that led to my current employment situation, we need to go back to a few hours to the moment a casual report landed on my desk. Missing containment division personnel 405, civilians over 10,000. I stared at the report. 10,000 civilians was tragic. 405 containment personnel was staffing problem. Before you judge me, understand that these numbers directly affect my workload. You're not even caring about the fact that thousands of people have been dying. Okay. According to the file, scientists stated throughout the Antarctica has been disappearing for the past 3 months. The first month, the entire research stations was abandoned. One moment they were there, the next they want no distress calls, no. According to the file, scientists stationed through Antarctica have been disappearing for the past 3 months. In the first month, 3 entire research stations were abandoned. One moment they were there, the next they want no distress call, no evacuation requests, no bodies, just empty facilities and missing personnel. The second month, 4 more stations vanished. The third month, 5. This month wasn't even half over yet, and 2 more stations had already gone silent. What's going on there? That was why containment responded so quickly. Normally, Antarctica buys you time. The containment is cold, remote, miserable, and generally hostile to human life. Emergency response and exactly convenience. But when Emergency response ain't exactly convenience. But when entire research stations start evaporating at the face of the planet, people suddenly become very motivated. They're like, who died? Oh, they killed him, cool. Who died? They killed another person too. Okay. Who died? They killed the third person. Okay, now we need to start acting. Sometimes they can even go to 50. I watched a video of a true crime where police didn't even care until the guy reached 40. They're like, okay, I feel we've been having the same death around the same area. There's something going on in this area. Like now we need to I'm like, my brother, you do not notice that in 10 deaths. I'm just being realistic, I'm just being realistic here. But what do I know? I am just a creator doing my business and just telling you guys what I have watched. Period. But so, the Containment Division Task Force was dispatched almost immediately. 405 personnel, every single one disappeared. I was lucky I had been in Egypt, otherwise that would have been my team. And somehow I don't think I'll be reading this report right now. I would have been part of it. There are only a few things capable of making an entire Containment Division team disappear without leaving behind a single body. An SSS class entity, another Containment Division team, or Antarctica itself. Honestly, Antarctica. Antarctica had the highest kill count of all three. People romanticize the place because it's covered in snow. In reality, it's an immense froze death trap that occasionally allows scientists to visit before trying to kill them. You fall into a crystal, you're gone. A blizzard rolls in, you're gone. You fall into a crevasse, you're gone. A blizzard rolls in, you're gone. You take one bad step in the wrong direction, congratulations, you're now part of the landscape. Unfortunately, my money wasn't on Antarctica. Something was down there, something powerful enough to erase. Unfortunately, my money wasn't on Antarctica. Something was down there, something powerful enough to erase entire facilities. Maybe a god, maybe something was. Maybe something even the CSP didn't know. As ridiculous as that sounds, several accidents over the last 3 months suggest CSP wasn't nearly informed as it liked to pretend. Gods had started disappearing from containment, not escaping, disappearing. One day they will be present, the next they'll be gone. Days or weeks later, they will casually return as if nothing had happened. Whenever they were questioned, the answer was always the same. We had offerings to make. Like, you need to start looking at what's going on there, because these people, they be like, yeah, you can't control us. And I feel like that's what the guy told us in the first story, because he was like, when you make an offering to the gods, you don't tell them that, hey, I'm gonna like trap you in there and basically do an experiment with you. It's kind of like they choose to be contained. They choose, and they can choose to live whenever they want to live. So it's kind of like you are at their mercy. That's bad. That's a bad job. You can't even control them. But at the same time, they're like, yo, you can just take me. I am bored for a few weeks. I got nothing else to do. Yeah, do whatever experiment you want to do with me. So like, you know what? I'm tired of being in this cell for the whole day. I've been looking at the walls for so long. I need to get out. I feel like that's what they might be doing. That was it. No explanation, no details. The lack of answers wasn't unusual. Most gods barely acknowledge that humanity exists. Talking to one is like trying to interview a hurricane. They generally don't care what you think and have no interest in explaining themselves. Their only exception was a river god. Jacob's team had recovered from the Amazon last spring. The thing loved hearing itself talk. I feel like the main reason why they keep doing that is because you keep on calling him a thing. I don't think it's a thing. I feel like it's not a thing. This is a god, which means it is powerful beyond you guys. Like, it can choose not to harm you. It chooses to be like, yeah, I don't want to do that to y'all. I don't want to do that. I mean, I wanna, but like, honestly, do I need to? No, I don't need to. Am I capable? Of course I am. But at the same time, it just seems like a lot of work. They just choose not to do that to you guys. But you guys be like, oh, let's call them it. That's the reason why many human beings, you be dying so much. The only exception was the river god, right? That thing loved hearing itself talk. Most gods treat interviews like talking to ants. It treats them like podcast appearance. When asked where the other was going, it gives us exactly one answer. The one with wings, a million seeker called upon us. Then it refused to elaborate. Containment had dismissed the statement. I didn't, because I noticed patterns. Over 3 months, 10,000 civilians had disappeared. Hundreds of personnel had disappeared, and gods were leaving containment facilities or mysteries gathering. Either the universe was experiencing the world's strangest coincidence. Gods were leaving containment facilities or mysteriously gathering. Antarctica was powerful enough to summon gods. Neither possibilities improved my day. I had 6 hours before dispatch, so I headed for the library. The library wasn't actually a library. Call it a library would be like calling a nuclear weapon at a flashlight. Technically not wrong, but missing several important details. Over a century ago, CSP made a deal with God living somewhere in the Himalayas. The arrangement was simple. It would provide a fraction of his knowledge in exchange for access to information twice every 100 years. Most people consider it one of the worst deals humanity has ever made. Personally, I thought those people were idiots. Most of CSP understanding of the circular lights came from deals exactly like this. Besides, from what I understand, the exchange benefits us far more than the gods. Imagine spending 5 minutes talking to an ant colon and giving it centuries of your accumulated knowledge in return. That's basically what happened. The god got a conversation, humanity got a shortcut through several thousand years of trial and error. After a few hours of search, I focused on the statement from the Amazon god. The one with wings and a million seekers calls upon us. Library returned with no result. That got my attention. The 44 floors of information never returned to zero results, ever. Everything leaves a trail, especially gods. They are far too arrogant to hide it. If they could, they will write their names across the moon and expect humanity to thank them for the view. I like them. I feel like there's something about cockiness that is also good at the same time not good. There's a good cockiness and there's a bad cockiness. I feel like a bad cockiness, like you just have to show up, but you don't have no results, right? And there are some good people where like they show up and they look good while doing it. Like you can't even see they're cocky because they have worked for them. They have worked for themselves. You know what I mean? I tried searching for winged gods instead. Thousands of entities appeared from winged entities, but not much. The more I thought about it, the less sense the description made. Gods don't have wings, not real ones. Their form exists for accessibility. They need followers, they need worshippers. Floating permanently above humanity would be supernaturally equivalent of opening a restaurant in the middle of the ocean. That's when I realized the thing being described probably wasn't a god. Unfortunately, the realization only led me to something worse. I wonder what that is. I truly wonder what that is, honestly. One of the historical texts contained section titled Origin. According to the book, the first gods had simply appeared. They had created. One passage immediately caught my attention. Makers descended from heaven. Raised the first gods from among lesser beings. Never heard the term before. The makers? They are people making gods? The caption provided almost no exception before I briefly ended. Another book mentioned the 3 objects descending into Antarctica thousands of years before recorded civilization. They weren't meteorites. They didn't have craters. They weren't mentors. They didn't leave craters. The illustrations on the next page nearly made me drop the book. 3 winged fingers emerged from their eyes. Their bodies were covered in eyes, millions of eyes. My stomach dropped as the Amazon god statement echoed through my head. Not seekers. Eyes. Oh, Jesus Christ. Imagine something. I feel like my worst fear is like finding something that is different and they just have like eyes everywhere. I feel like just kill me right there. Honestly, just take me, because what am I gonna do after that information? Because honestly, there's no way I'll go back normal after what I just saw, and there's no way that I'll be okay mentally after what I just saw. So matter of fact, how about we just end it right here? Do me a favor, give me the most easiest death, because at the end of the day, I don't want to be going through much pain. Matter of fact, let me see you and faint and die. I feel like that will be like a good promise for myself. You know what I mean? My stomach dropped as the Amazon god statement echoed through my head. Not eyes, not seekers, eyes. The translation had been wrong, or perhaps the god had intentionally used a word that meant both. The beings in the history books had a name: angels. When I searched the library database for one, only a single result appeared. One page. The library contained millions of books, and somehow only possessed a single page about angels. That terrified me more than anything. I read all day because it meant the library contained millions of books, and somehow only possessed a single page about angels. That terrified me more than anything. I read all day because it meant somebody had gone out of their way to erase them from history. According to the document, angels existed before the gods. They had been created directly by the creator and originally maintained reality itself. But they got bored. I stared at the sentence for several seconds. Bored. So the makers are the angels, and the angels made the gods, and then now the gods are literally killing us lesser human beings. The document compared their behavior to humanity. We are supposed to protect the world, yet we spend most of our existence damaging it. According to the page, angels weren't much different. After existing for millions or perhaps billions of years, they simply stopped caring. They lost interest in reality, lost interest in purpose, lost interest in everything. Somewhere along the way, they started creating gods, not because they needed to, but because they were bored. Apparently, cosmetic beings are just as capable of making terrible decisions as everybody else. Oh, we're screwed. Imagine something being bored to the point where it's like, I just want to create gods just to damage the whole entire system. I just want to do that. That will make my day, because then I will stop not being. Because then I'll literally have better things to do. You know what I mean? God, this is the first time I ever sat still, and I'm proud of myself for doing that. If what I was reading was true, that was insane. CSP barely possessed the resource necessary to manage some gods. Several entities remain corrupting solely because they felt like it. I feel like that's even worse. They were like, yo, just take us. Our gods become us, whatever. Bye. It was not spending time with you guys. Woo! And now you're like, oh my god, we did. An angel, one of the original three, forgot tamed. We probably couldn't even annoy it. If what I read was true, I glared at the clock. 3 hours until dispatcher. There was no way in hell I was keeping this to myself. I folded the papers, headed to the elevator. The board of directors accompanied the 100 unsecured floor. Most personnel never felt the board of directors accompanied the 102nd floor. Most personnel never set foot there. The directors were usually too busy to meet without weeks of scheduling and enough paperwork to kill a small forest. I didn't have weeks. I barely had 3 hours. By the time the elevator doors opened, I was particularly jogging. Most of the directors were offside, which left me with exactly one option, Mr. Stonehill. Unfortunately, Stonehill sat above the head of containment. And held a permanent seat on the floor. Unfortunately, Stonehill sat above the head of containment and held a permanent seat on the board. He was also a snob, though. That hardly made him unique among upper managers. I knocked one. Come in. The door slid open. Stonehill looked exactly like how he always did. Like a snake. I just learned how to wear a suit. Like we're talking about all governments. don't. Allegedly. You know what I mean? Let's be honest. I feel like we're talking about a lot of corrupt people. And they not snakes will learn how to wear suits. That's what they say. The most scariest thing in humanity is a suit. Because it has all the power to damage you. I just came up with that. I placed the page on his desk, so I think I found something connected to the Antarctica. I explained everything. The disappearance, the gods, the books, the angels. When I finished, he glanced at the paper and said, the facilities already knows about angels. I felt irritation offended. I spent hours discovering information he apparently already had seated in a cabinet somewhere. Then you know what is beneath Antarctica? No. The answer came immediately. Because if an angel was involved, none of this would be happening. What do you mean? Stonehill leaned back in his chair. Gods care about followers. They exist long before gods. What do you mean? Gods care about followers. Angels don't. They existed long before gods. Humanity and civilians, they don't need worshippers. No need for sacrifice. No need for attention. He shrugged. 10,000 missing humans wouldn't mean nothing to them. I looked down at the page. Then Amazon gods said they were being called. Gods say many things. I hate the answer. Then what is happening? The entity is gathering followers. His expression hit him. And every hour we waste debating it increases the body count. I stared at him for a moment before asking the question that had already been bothering me since I entered the office. How do we know he's gathering followers? I asked. What if he's just killing people because it wants to? That actually got his attention. For several seconds he considered the question before shaking his head. If something powerful enough to erase 400 personnel killed purely for amusement, humanity would have disappeared long ago. If I could argue, I hated that answer. Unfortunately, hating it wasn't going to buy me extra time. If I could argue, the office door opened. Stonehill assistant stepped inside. Sir, transport is ready? Stonehill nodded and looked at me. The conversation was over. Your aircraft leaves in less than 2 hours, Miss Nereve. I grabbed the page from his desk. Stonehill had already gone back to his paperwork. As far as he was concerned, an article contained another god, another mission, another problem, nothing more. I knew that the CSP viewed personnel as gain of souls. As an indifference didn't surprise me at all. We reached Antarctica surprisingly quickly. The aircraft was mostly automated, which wasn't standard for CSP operators. They usually insisted on keeping a pilot on board. I felt like they just sent you to your dead hill, bro. Let's accept it, and I think you need to accept it. Let's accept it, and you accept it. You know what I mean? Because that's the only reasonable explanation about this. You're telling me an angel, right, was killed for entertainment, then everybody would have been dead. And if it is not, and if it's not the angel, then what is it? Which means it's something bigger than the angel. And I don't know what it is, but I'm getting scared for you. Okay, I'm just lying. I'm not getting scared for you. I'm just excited. This sounds more interesting. This is a good book. I mean, it is so it's real, so We don't know. We don't know. We reached Antarctica surprisingly quickly. They usually insist on keeping a pilot on board. This time they didn't. Personally, I figured it was because if 800 of us vanished, they'd still be able to recruit the pilot. Personally, I figured it wasn't because if 800 of us visit, they'll still be able to recruit. Personally, I figured out because if 800 of us vanish, they will still be able to recover the plane. The CSP loves cutting costs, which is funny because none of us get paid. That's so sad. Imagine them cutting costs and you guys not even getting paid at the end of it. That's some damn cheapness, honestly. The CSP loves cutting costs, which is funny because none of us gets paid. People hear secret government organization and imagine unlimited budgets. The reality is less glamorous. We live in CSP facilities, eat CSP food, wear CSP uniforms, and usually die before retirement. For the few who somehow survive long enough to retire, there's a pension waiting for them. Most never get the chance to collect it. On the bright side, healthcare is free, so I try not to complain so much. The automatic aircraft landed roughly 2 miles from the animal. The automated aircraft landed roughly 2 miles from the animal. 800 security personnel accompanied me. My negotiation team consists of 20 specialists selected from the various departments. Normally, I also have an assistant. Unfortunately, my last assistant is technically still classified as alive, so I don't qualify for a new one. You are heartless. You just killed a person. Matter of fact, if the gods basically made the person worshippers, which means the person does not have the abilities to think for themselves. So basically, which means you send them to their death. Because if somebody doesn't have the ability to think for themselves, they're just like a rotten corpse at this point. They are just dead but alive. Because they can't think for themselves. I feel like that's the main thing that makes life so exciting, is the fact that we have the ability to think for ourselves. We can do what we want. We can choose what we want to do with our lives. And I feel like that's the best gift. We have a choice. And if you don't have a choice, you don't have autonomy, then how are you alive? Because everything you're doing, you can't even, you're doing it because of obligations or because of like something stronger than you has possessed your whole body to a point where you start living for them and not for you. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like, okay, in terms of religion, there are some religion where there's like, okay, you obey by the scripture and you do everything the scripture tells you to do because you look at the scripture and say, I love the message that the Bible is giving me, so I want to live according to being a righteous person, right? And being a righteous person is kind of like, I'm going to live like that. It's going to be a part of who I am. But at the end of the day, it's still a choice. You choose to live like that. You choose not to live like that. And I feel like that's what he's not. So you literally sent him to his death because he's not thinking about himself. Let's be honest about that. We approached the entry of a massive ice cave, craft deep into the Antarctica shelf. At first, nothing seems unusual. The tunnel dished in layers, each one deeper than the last. We passed the first level, the second, third, and fourth. Nothing. By the time we reached the 6th level, several members of the team were visibly relaxing. I wasn't. Something had erased 455 containment personnel. It was here. We simply hadn't found it yet. Then we reached the 7th level and everything changed. The cold didn't bother me much. Our suits were designed for Antarctica deployment and could withstand temperatures that could kill an unprotected human in minutes. What I saw, the walls were covered in blood. The walls were covered in bodies, thousands of them. Frozen men and women embodied directly into the snow. Scientists, containment personnel, civilians, some looked terrified, others apparently completely calm, as if they simply stopped moving and frozen where they stood. The tunnel stretched ahead of Mars. Every inch of it was lined with human beings. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. I stared at the frozen face surrounding us, then into the darkness within ahead. This was bad. So unbelievably bad because I finally knew one thing for certain. This wasn't a god. Gods need followers. They need worshippers. They need people that they can influence, manipulate, communicate with. Freezing thousands of humans inside a land where nobody could ever reach them served no purpose. We continued downward. 11:8, 11:9, 11:10. The bodies never stopped. Ooh, I feel like that would be my worst nightmare. Imagine just going up there and you just keep seeing bodies like that's almost part of decoration and you're just supposed to act normal. The deeper we went, the older they became. Scientists gave way to explorers. Explorers gave way to soldiers. Soldiers gave way to people wearing clothes from civilians that should have not existed. Some of the crops looked thousands of years old, yet some remained perfectly preserved, as if the ice itself refused to let them decay. By the time we reached the bottom, nobody was speaking anymore. At the center of the cavern stood something larger than a mountain. How will they speak? What's the purpose of speaking? You just seen something that's scary. Do you even need to speak after that? By the time we reached the bottom, nobody was speaking to them. A winger at the center of the cavern stood something larger than a mountain. A winged figure covered in eyes, millions of them. Chains wrapped around his bodies and disappeared into the fire. Chains wrapped around his bodies, and I made the only decision that benefited the person that I cared about the most, which was myself. Honestly, I respect that. I respect that. This is not a time for you to be a hero. Matter of fact, you being a hero, I feel like it would be just too performative. I feel like you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna be a hero. Oh, you being a hero because you wanna show people that you care. Oh, wow, Mr. Caring person. Wow. You know what I mean? Like, just be real. Sometimes we as humans, we have selfish deeds. Not that I will blame you though. I mean, like, obviously we need to save humanity. That's true. But sometimes you just gotta save yourself and nobody will blame you. Let's be honest, guys. Let's be honest. Right? They said, okay. I said, I agree. Just make it stop. The world turned white. When I woke up, I was inside the aircraft. The engines were running. The airport was already returning us home. The seats around me were empty. No soldiers, no negotiators, no pilots. The angel had never accepted my terms. It had offered its own. What does that mean? Did I move? Yes. Main reason because honestly, while editing, I kept looking at the video, and I just feel like it just keeps getting brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter and brighter. So maybe I need to move. Okay, so we were here. So the final one is, so I made a decision here. Okay, I said, I agree, just make it stop. The world turned white. When I woke up, I was inside the aircraft. The engines were running. The autopilot was already turning us. When I woke up, I was inside the aircraft. The engines were running. The autopilot was already returning us home. The seats around me were empty. No soldiers, no negotiators, no pilots. The engine had never accepted my terms. It had offered its own. As soon as I returned this afternoon, I found myself standing before the board of directors trying to explain why I was the only survivor. How do you explain? Honestly, this just seems like they just wanted you to die. Madame Lee's voice turned through the silence. All 8 board members, including Stonehill, were staring at me. It was an angel. The room immediately became tense. Several directors inhaled sharply. Others exchanged nervous glances. They are all dead. I continued. In return, the angel accepted our terms. Several directors visibly relaxed. The agreement isn't permanent. What's the point of accepting and then not accepting? It's kind of like the angel's like, I may just leave you guys. I may. Just know I may. If I'm bored, I'm just going to come for you guys. And then until I have someone who's going to make me laugh again, then I may just do it. Like, you're literally at that mercy at this point. And I feel like that's even worse. Alright, they're all dead. I continued, but in return, the angel, the agreement isn't permanent. I added, the relief vanished instantly. Not permanent? What do you mean, agent? Madame Leah asked. I think only the angel can explain that. Then the conference room doors opened. Every head turned. A young man stepped inside. A dark hair, perfect smile, eyes that seemed far too bright. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. The young man looked around the room. His smile widened as he took in the expression staring back at him. Then he tilted his head slightly. Someone promised me that you will all keep me entertained. Run! Dude. I honestly don't have any better explanation. Honestly, you know what? Matter of fact, let's just accept our fate. Let's just accept our fate. His gaze drifted across the conference table. For a moment, he looked almost disappointed. I suppose we will find out if she was telling the truth. Now, if you're wondering, yes, he did come back with me. I know what I said earlier. The aircraft was empty when I woke up. It was. There was no pilot, no negotiator, no soldiers. I never said there was no angel. Looking back is probably a good thing. CSP decided to save money and remove the pilot, explaining why I returned to the aircraft with no crew. A perfectly healthy man wearing normal clothes in sub-zero temperatures would raise some uncomfortable questions. He can even transform. Wow. So that's how I ended up with a new boss. Funny how life works. One day you're trying not to die in Antarctica, and the next day, funny how life works. One day you're trying not to die in Antarctica, and the next you are apparently an assistant employed to entertain an immortal cosmetic horror older than civilization. Although assistant probably isn't the right title. If he is the boss of Stonehill, then technically we are all assistant. The way I see it, humanity didn't stop at extinction event beneath Antarctica. We negotiated a performance review, and eventually every audience gets bored. This was good. This was some good story. Some good story. You can't tell me that this was not some good story. Honestly, this is amazing. I'm literally looking forward to part 3. And if you're gonna get part 3, honestly, part 3 you guys gonna get it tomorrow. And I'm pretty sure that if you guys watch this video before then obviously part 3 you just click one of the videos and you're gonna get there. I'm excited. I'm excited about what's going on. This sounds way too good to be told. And honestly, I'm looking forward to every little bit of dramatic thing that's currently happening here because honestly, it's a free movie. It's a free storytelling, and who doesn't like a free storytelling that is kind of horrifying? We are literally witnessing angels and humans and dragons, everything alive just coming together and just basically you have to entertain a cosmetic being because that's the only choice for you to be alive. For a guy who said he did not care, for a girl who said he did not care about how I live, now she totally cares. So guys, thank you so much for you guys watching this video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with another video. So stay tuned because it's about to get interesting. And also, if you guys have your own movie ideas, you guys are more than welcome to send me your stories, and after this series and I will make sure that I start telling you guys your stories. Honestly, I love me a good laugh, I love me a good story, and I hope that you guys are also entertained as well. So I will see you guys. Make sure that you hug your parents, hug your moms, hug your babies, and make sure you just, I don't know, just be grateful in life. I feel like we need to be grateful instead of complaining most of the time. I also need to follow that advice. So bye.